Israel has conceded to demands from the US and agreed to open a border crossing into northern Gaza. The UN say people there are on the brink of starvation. President Biden called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and threatened to act unless there were concrete steps from Israel to alleviate the crisis. Well, let's speak now to Laura Blumenfeld, a former senior policy advisor at the State Department on the Israel-Palestinian negotiating team. Laura Blumenfeld, thanks very much for making the time to speak to us today. I mean, we've had a little bit of a readout of that call between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, but what do you think was said in that call that will have made those crossings open? Of course, those calls have been made before.
Absolutely. Look, I think President Biden made Netanyahu an offer he couldn't refuse, right? The era of unconditional love and guns is over. And so what he basically said to Netanyahu, we'll make you a kind of guns for butter trade. We'll give you the weapons that you need. You need to provide the desperately needed humanitarian aid for the civilians to survive. Look, Netanyahu is trying to survive politically. He's also trying to keep his company afloat, and he understands the stakes couldn't be higher.
Yeah, and you think it was as sort of cynical as that we'll keep providing the weapons. Of course, America is a security guarantee for Israel, but you have to open those crossings. Because the point I'm trying to make, Laura, is that, of course, that pressure must have been put on before by Mr. Biden. Why do you think now was the moment when, you know, the port was opened and the crossing at Kerem Shalom and Erez were opened?
Well, I think the strike on the aid workers was the last straw. You heard it from Secretary Blinken today. He said, words matter, but results matter more. And they're waiting to see, do the Israelis, are they able to deliver? Are they able to? Look, overnight, you saw an announcement of several new openings. You have crossing at the Erez crossing into Gaza for the first time since October 7th has been open. The port of Ashdod, which is just north of Gaza, is now available to deliver aid, and an increase of trucks being delivered through Jordan. What you're seeing from the IDF is a mega mea culpa. They're accepting responsibility. The report, the internal investigation came in overnight. It was swift. There were dismissals and disciplinary action. The language is, mistake, misidentification, miscalculation. They're owning their mistake. And the trust, though, has been broken with the United States. So they're saying, let's see if they can actually follow through.
I mean, you seem to be suggesting, Laura, that we might be at a real turning point in terms of what may well happen. Of course, it's worth remembering that hanging over all of this is there's the promise from Benjamin Netanyahu to go into Rafah at some point. I mean, how do you think that plays into this and the way that the war is going to move from this point forward?
The administration has been very good, actually, despite the fog of war, of laying out clear red lines and saying, do not cross them. One of them is going into Rafah without a clear and actionable plan to safeguard the civilians there. Another one, which was brought up in the phone call yesterday, was no reoccupation of Gaza by Israel and no reduction in the territory. If you're creating a buffer zone, you're going to have to figure out another way. You cannot shrink Gaza any smaller.
OK. Laura Blumenfeld, really appreciate the time. I'm sorry we've run short at the top of the hour, but thanks very much for being with us.
Great to be here.